The retail sector is continuously growing. According to Statista, total retail sales in the United States are projected to amount to around 5.94 trillion US dollars in 24, up from around 5.47 trillion US dollars in 2019. But something that seems irrepressible and necessitates its use in every industry now, if you talk about retail specifically, is the location intelligence. Well, hello everyone. Welcome to Analytics Insight podcast, and I'm your host Priya Dayarani, where we talk about the ever-evolving technology space. Now, over 90% of companies believe that location data is crucial for their success. This proves the power of location. Well, what is the reason behind it? To help us with this answer, we have Devashish Floria, co-founder and CEO of GeoIQ. Hi Devashish, how are you doing?
Hi Priya, I'm very good. Thanks a lot for that introduction.
We are glad that you are here for our podcast today. So, I believe location intelligence is something, it's not pretty new as far as I know, but I guess many people are not aware about the advantages that it can offer to retailers. So, and the company also sounds quite interesting. So, if you can help us know more about the company and its specialization and about the different services that it provides.
Right. I'll pick it up from what you just mentioned, that location intelligence is something that people have known for a long time. For the last 50, 60 years across the world, some bit of analytics has been used, just an understanding of where people are buying, what activities are happening. It has been there in the market. The question is now, how do we see it in the modern domain where e-commerce is also present, where a lot of data is also present, and people are used to processing this data. So that's where we come into the picture. We started in 2018, primarily with the idea that we should be able to solve the where problem. Where is my business opportunity? Where am I going to do well? Where am I not likely to do well? If we have those answers handy to start with, the retail sector, as you mentioned, a massive sector within every economy. When we look at India, around 10% of the Indian economy is contributed by retail sector. So massive jobs, massive number of people employed, lot of throughput being generated. All is dependent on the quality of decisions, and location for retail becomes one of the major primary factors. There is an old saying that where location is everything in retail. Now, as we are evolving, there are many more components being added to it, but location remains primarily a central piece in that. Now, as GeoIQ, we are the company which is growth partners for a lot of our retail clients, helping them with geographic growth. When you talk about retail, it has to be placed on a street, on a physical location. How do you design your network? Where do you go next? We come in as partners. We use a lot of data analytics to tell you where your next opportunity area is going to be. Where should you be making your retail investments? So that is where GeoIQ comes into the picture. At a very top level, I've given you, some idea about what kind of things that we do. But at the back end, we're using a lot of, data analytics, a lot of machine learning to predict your success at any point in the country. That's what we do.
Glad to know about it. And I think you clearly define as to you're trying to answer the where question for the retailers, where your customers are, or where your maximum retail investment should be. So, and nowadays, I feel as a retailer, it's very important to know who your consumers are, or what they are purchasing, how frequently they are purchasing, where they are coming from. So, I think a lot of data comes into picture when we are trying to pitch or prepare like a retail or marketing strategy. And I believe that I think over 80% of your data has like some kind of a geographic component. And I think that's where the location intelligence comes into picture. Having said that, you gave a lot of brief about the company. We would also want to know what has been your role towards the company or your contribution towards the company till date.
Okay, so I am the CEO here at GeoIQ, and like every CEO, my job starts by defining the vision of the company. My job also, continues to drive sales, drive customer interactions, drive partnerships, and maybe be the conduit between the technology that our teams are building and the requirements of the clients to define how we are going to achieve that vision. So that's where my role starts and ends very briefly. But on a day to day basis, I'm the one interacting with partners, investors, clients to define how their strategic uh, growth should align with their own ambitions. And like we said, from retail perspective, we have to align our vision with the vision of our clients. And I am trying to marry the two together at GeoIQ.
Great. I think you also have like a very comprehensive role towards the company in terms of daily operations or in terms of even having a broader vision as to where the company should grow. Now, moving forward, I think as a retailer or any such of business that you would do, a strategy is developed. For example, you might have a strategy that you develop so that you can compete against your competitors. And any capability that significantly supports the plan is referred to as a strategic enabler. And I think in today's date, technology or tech-enabled solutions is one such strategic enable. But many businesses are still baffled by it, and I think retailers mostly because they believe that the physical stores still have that much of importance compared to the online sales. So, having like a or understanding what is your strategic advantage is very important nowadays. Now, what are your views when we're talking about technology in the retail industry? Because I believe that while we are talking about new solutions and tech-enabled solutions in the retail industry, there are many retailers. For example, if you consider India, I'm not sure how retailers are, have a very positive aspect towards adopting technology in terms of increasing their retail sales. So, what are your views about the integration of technology in the retail industry?
So, like you mentioned, e-commerce has been one of the drivers of technology, but there are limitations to e-commerce as well. We haven't seen e-commerce take over the world as we imagined it to be 10, 15 years ago. Retail continues to occupy the larger pie of all the spending that happens in the consumer segment. Now, that is what now we believe is likely to continue. There is a plateau that e-commerce hits after a while. So, but when we look at retail, one unit of retail is one store. What are they doing? I mean, uh, there are sometimes we don't see the technology, but technology has already made inroads into this retail world. If you think about the entire chain, directly from manufacturing to warehousing to where to set up the store to handling customer stocks and inventories to knowing who your customers are, personalizing the stock based on where you are, and then marketing. There have been technology interventions at every point, even within the retail industry. Even though it might look that there are still primitive interactions happening, technology has already, you know, become a large part of the retail industry. Now, when you think about, how are the transactions being processed? You see in every shop, transactions are being handled online. Everybody has got a point of sale device. uh, there are markers on every product which says a set price. You're not negotiating when you go to a retail store, you're buying it at the listed price. These listed prices are also being very dynamic. So we have all seen this evolution within the retail industry, and that has been primarily possible because technology has automatically intervened at different places. You go to a store today and you say, okay, I need a certain washing powder, which is not there in the stock. And the storekeeper says, sir, it will be there tomorrow, because this person goes and feeds certain information back to the warehouse. the information is flowing. Next day, there is a delivery guy who delivers that stock. All these things are already being taken care of. But what we also see in the retail industry, because it's a complex world, right? There are lot of scattered, pieces of information where things are being built. Um, we do not see that we will solve the entire chain, but can we, as tech companies, envision a future where, even when we look at GeoIQ, can we be the AWS of retail, where everything, all components are being centralized? So let's say you come to, let's call it retail web services from GeoIQ. So if you want to look at your manufacturing stock, it's there. There are pieces of technology available for that. If you want to open a store, there are modules available with that, which empower your decision making. If you want to now do hyper local marketing, there are technology pieces available for you. We are envisioning that future and trying to build, some, and maybe in the future, all of the technologies together, so that a functioning of a retail store, from identifying what stocks to put and what customers to sell to and use what kind of marketing channels, everything comes under the same purview. So technology, while it might seem that there is, limited technology in retail world, it has already increased. Can it be better? Yes, there is a lot of scope for, adding more technology in the world of retail.
Yes, I think I completely agree with you when we're talking about the scope of how technology probably can transform the retail industry is huge. And I think over the years, we will witness more innovative solutions that can help simplify retail sales and retail development. But for several years, I believe that retailers have used traditional statistical models such as census data for the site selection tactics, or deciding on a particular location. Now, this may have worked very well in the past, but given the rapid changes in consumer behavior, especially in a couple of last years due to the pandemic, it is very vital for them to use more recent and latest geographic data streams, I believe. So, for example, a high-end clothing retailer can explore new possible locations in the context of their surroundings or traffic patterns. By visualizing the catchment area for a potential location, I think retailers can quickly zero in on high quality sites. Now, this was one such probable use case, that how location data or location intelligence can help retailers find one of high selling location sites. Can you tell us more about some real world use cases of your solutions that have helped retailers, and some related success metrics that we can share with our listeners?
You mentioned, Priya, that people have been using demographic data in simple, Excel sheets and doing simple calculations. That
Right.
never changes. But can we make it smarter, better? Is what we are aiming at. Now, the
Okay.
question that when you have to look at something like a census data is because you are trying to size the market. How many people do
Mhm.
live here? Now, apart from census, there is no other way to calculate that information. Obviously, you have
Okay.
to either you use the 2011 census numbers, or you look at
Mhm.
ways to project this information to current numbers. People have been
Right.
using census information at a very broad level, city level, district level. But where
Mhm.
GeoIQ comes into the picture is we've been using advanced machine learning and advanced, technical knowledge to break this data down, to project this information, to first highlight, what is the size of the market for your specific brand or your specific segment. The question then deepens further. Well, you've given the idea about the market size. Now, if this retailer has decided that there is enough opportunity, should I be entering? Where in this market should I enter? So you have to now continuously look at how much of the market can I penetrate? How many competitors are present in there? What is the spending behavior in this particular market? How what else are people spending on? If I put another store near my existing store, will I cannibalize my own market? So there are continuous questions which come into the picture once you start looking at, deciding where to go in the market, right from market sizing down to, operating the store and successfully operating the store. So what we see in the market today is people come to us primarily from the knowledge that first they want to understand where in the country should they go. Metros has been a clear cut use case for a lot of people, and that's why you see there are all sorts of brands present in metros. But the opportunity in India today lies outside metros. Because of e-commerce, because of internet, people are consuming more and more products even in smaller town centers. But is that information visible to us? Is that information that how much of a disposable income has come in a tier 1 or tier 2 city like Nasik? How many people exist in the market? When we speak to retailers, they do have anecdotal information, and I'm taking the example of Nasik. People start from Bombay, Pune, and then what next? You have certain idea of numbers in Bombay and Pune, but Nasik, how many rich people live in Nasik is a question which becomes guesswork. So when you have to decide, or when people are looking to, design their next growth journey, they have to tap into these opportunities. And this is why they come to us. The first question is, should I go to Nasik? Should I go to Aurangabad? Should I go to Jabalpur? Should I go to Asansol in West Bengal? Now, these are very critical choices because I am going to put 100 crores of my money into a decision. And if I've made a wrong choice, that will define my future business trajectory. But at the start, if I am making the right calls on which city should I go to, then within each city, which market should I go to? Within each market, which exact point on the map should I go to? These are the questions that people come to us with. And this is where we design the entire strategy for the entire country for our customers. I'll also, give you an example of how this pans out for the modern D2C companies, the companies who have started selling online, but they hit 100 crores in revenue, and then they realize now profitability is an important factor. So they have to go down to the streets for branding reasons and for profitability reasons. A retail store is a much better economically sound model compared to e-commerce. We all know e-commerce, people keep losing money. So, going out on the street is not about choice. It's the only option to make actual money. So people have to decide. Now,
Right.
you look at online information, our D2C companies have sold to India everywhere, but then they now need to know that, hey, where will my first 10 stores going to be? How many stores can I
Mhm.
put within this city? That is when they come to us
Right.
and design the entire strategy. Now, at the back end, we are using a lot of location information about people through satellite imagery, through road networks, through mobility, how people move within a city. All that information is thrown into our predictive engine to identify how much revenue are you going to make if you open a store at this specific location on a map. Now imagine the beauty of the solution for a lot of retailers, that sitting in an office, you're not talking in terms of gut based calls like, I think there is an opportunity there. I think this is a good market. We come in and we tell you exact opportunity size in that market. If you open a store here, this is how much you will make. If you open a store somewhere in Nasik, this is how much you will make. If you open a store in Bombay, let's say you make 10 crores in a year out of a store in Bombay. Once you try applying the same logic to Nasik, will you make 5 crores or will you make 8 crores? These are the numbers which are crucial for businesses to devise their growth plans and therefore continuously deploy capital in that. So a
Right.
lot of information comes together, but for the strategic decision makers in these companies, All they need is a simplified answer. How much I'm going to make
Mhm.
if I put X amount of capital? A lot of data science has gone in the background, but what turns a needle is just a simple answer, and it's a number. If you can
Right.
give that number with high degree of confidence, how you came about it is where the magic is happening in the background, but the answer is still a single number which devises the
Mhm.
continuous growth strategy of that company.
Right. True, true. I think 50 years back, if anyone would want to start like a retail store, they would just randomly look at a high traffic area and put up a store. But nowadays, I think it's not easy as it sounds, because there are a lot of changes that are happening in the industry, and no matter the age or interest, I think the customers are now also expecting tailored shopping experiences. Now, as per one research, it's found that 73% of customers aspire to be truly delighted by the companies they shop with. But unfortunately, only 18% feel like companies are delivering that level of personalization. So I believe in 2024 and also in the coming years, the retail industry definitely has to put some sort of efforts to bridge this gap and use of data analytics or location intelligence or different forms of technological development in order to provide like a individualized shopping experience. So while we're talking about such, a personalized shopping experiences that is unique for each customer, I would want to know where Geo IQ is placed in all of this, or what makes the company innovative. Are there any key partnerships or involvements done to drive the necessary innovation and helping retailers or retail companies being able to provide those customized or personalized shopping experiences?
Yes. So when we look at the retail industry, Priya, um, you know, the question of personalization comes because we have seen that happen down to a user level in the e-commerce industry. You open Amazon, everything is
Mm-hmm.
designed to your specific needs. But when we go to
Right.
retail industry, even if let's say a brand has 20 stores within a city, they only have city-wide strategies. So the
Mm-hmm.
going down to a customer level is still some distance away. The question or the
Mm-hmm.
challenge, not just in India, everywhere in the world, is how do we even personalize that if I have 20 stores, my experience in each store should be designed for the people shopping in that market. So
Right.
therefore, when GeoIQ looks at these things, we are first breaking it down to a much, much finer level. I'll give you an example, and there's a beautiful story which somebody from the food and beverage industry once told us. That one of the largest restaurant chains in South India, the owner of that company used to, before deciding where to put up a store, what kind of store should it be, he used to stand himself at each traffic signal, count the numbers of cars, and then based on that decide his policy or decide his strategy on where he should be putting up the store and what is the kind of experience he would like to give in that particular store. One junction, based on the number of cars, you can imagine, if you see Mercedes in one junction and if you see a lot of taxis in one junction, the behavior of these two places will be very different. So it's
True, true.
not personalization to a level of the customer, but personalization
Mm-hmm.
specifically to the audience that is going to walk into that market. Now, one of the key
Right.
areas where I think GeoIQ has done fantastically well is in mobility patterns. When we look at, we are already partnering with a lot of mobility data suppliers. This mobility data is basically the movement of mobile phones across the country. So it is
Mm-hmm.
anonymized information. Your mobile is always sending a location signal over the internet in an anonymized manner. What we do is, through this partnership, we are able to see that if a mobile phone lives in a certain house, where is this person moving throughout the day? So this is at an individual level. it's you
Mm-hmm.
he eats and sleeps in his house, and then he or she goes out in the market, office. You start seeing those patterns. Now you put all the consumers together, and you start
Mm-hmm.
seeing very, very interesting patterns. What we see in retail today is, we talk about catchments. People have only been looking at pin code level understanding or 2 kilometer radius level of understanding. But when we look at mobility and therefore footfall on a street, we see that a mall could be drawing audience from as far as 10 kilometers, but on a high street the audience could be primarily coming from the neighborhood. So these patterns are very, very important to understand, to see what kind of footfall is going to be coming into your store. Now, let's say I am in Bandra West, and Bandra West draws 50% of its audience from within Bandra. My store will cater to the needs of the Bandra audience, and GeoIQ will also tell you what kind of audience this is. Now, if I go to Andheri in Mumbai, and GeoIQ has those numbers that in Andheri, let's assume that 20% of the audience is coming from Andheri, but another 20% is coming from Borivali. Now, imagine what this store will do differently compared to the store in Bandra. It will say that, okay, 20% of my audience is coming from nearby. It is of a certain wealth class, of a certain different age group, is consuming a lot of other things. I have to take into account so that my store experience has that, you know, early information that my experience in the store will cater to the audience in Andheri as well as that in Borivali. So that is, when you're looking at retail, that is the level of personalization which is real. We might go ahead and say that tomorrow, you should walk into the store, and immediately the store, salesperson should know that, hey, Priya has walked into the store and she has these sort of choices and preferences, and I'm already going to know that. But imagine, that will be creepy. That will be very creepy if that starts happening. So
True,
therefore,
true.
so that is exactly the reason why you're going to a store, because you want to have an open experience. Otherwise,
Mm-hmm.
e-commerce is already, showing you the thing that you want to see. But to see what else is happening out there, you want to go to the store and see what else is out there. So there is a very fine line between making it heavily personalized to just the right amount. And therefore
Just the
we
right
are
amount. Yeah.
partnering, yeah, we are partnering with a lot of data suppliers, and I'll pick one of those numbers, that footfall. We are the first um, company in India to give you this accurate number of that. If I put a store, or if I'm looking at a street in Nasik, in Asansol, in Jaipur, Udaipur, wherever you look at, we tell you how much crowd walks outside this store. That is the first element, right? That's your top of the funnel. If I get 100 customers, then I will try to pull 20 customers in. So you need to know how many customers are walking outside that store. So that number comes through this mobility data partnership. But we also tell you
Okay.
that if these are 100 people walking on the street outside this store, where exactly are
Mm-hmm.
they coming from? Imagine, this
Mm-hmm.
not only helps me as a brand devise my strategy for my own goods, but it also helps me understand what my competitor is doing. So if I check on the same
Right.
platform, say this is my store, 100 meters down the line there is my competition, and if I ask a question on that competition, I also get an insight on how much footfall is this person getting, where is it coming from, and what is the distribution of it. So we're sticking to that mobility information. But if, let's say, I am Adidas and I know there's a Nike store and I'm just opening a new Adidas, if I know that the primary audience of this Nike store is coming from a certain neighborhood 2 kilometers away, as I start my business, I will drive my entire marketing campaign in that specific neighborhood. That's the personalization that
Right.
we are talking in the retail
Mm-hmm.
world. So through
Got it.
innovation, through this high volume data that we are handling at the back end, the end goal is to come up with a simple enough number so that anybody can use it. I don't need to be a brand.
Mm-hmm.
If I am a local business person and I have a property and I want to put my own store, we want even that business person to be accurately able to predict their success metric. Am I going to be successful or not? How much am I going to make if we put this if we use this space for maybe a cafe, but also maybe I can, if I have an open space, I can put a cafe or I can put a apparel store. How do I decide? So if, let's say, if you have that, pre-science, pre-science about what is going to work at this specific point, it drives a lot of value. It drives much faster decision making rather than waiting for
Mm-hmm.
2 years to do an experiment and then fail. On day one, you already know what's going to
Right.
work and what's not going to work.
Right. Definitely, I think it makes a lot of sense. And thank you for explaining in such a brief way and in a very simpler way as to what exactly works and what exactly is needed in today's retail industry. Now, in past of your responses, you mentioned about using a lot of ML algorithms or artificial intelligence for that matter. Now, of course, I know that these tech-driven innovations offer a lot of benefits, improve customer experiences, enhanced operational efficiency, and a more sustainable approach to business. But there also comes a flip side to these innovations, I believe. For example, one could be data protection or data theft or data threats, potential threats or vulnerabilities against data. So, what are certain challenges that you're facing right now, or the company is facing, and how do you intend to overcome?
So, the first challenge I would say is in getting that right metric uh, for the users. I mentioned one metric, which is, how much revenue I'm going to make. That is what the business needs. To arrive at that number, there is a lot of data analytic works that happen in the background. And you rightly mentioned GeoIQ has a lot of data, but it needs to be married to the company's own data. So, we have to look at what has the company done in the past, align GeoIQ's data to it, run machine learning algorithms to identify what constitutes success, what constitutes failure, and then project it to the rest of the landscape. So yes, there is data exchange involved here, but one of the challenges is always that people do not want to share their exact revenue numbers. What we've also figured out now is that to bypass this, for our machine learning algorithms, you don't really need to know the exact numbers. You can use some scaled mechanism where the exact numbers of the company are masked, but put in a different scale. The machine learning algorithm will see it as a pattern and start projecting the answers. But data itself is a sensitive issue. GeoIQ is also very careful about how it sources its own data. A lot of it is coming from public sources, from private sources. It's all designed in such a way that there is no personal level information getting incorporated anywhere. There is no name, there is no phone number, nothing. But when we talk about this marriage of two data sets, data protection is something very, very critical. And I think
Right.
it is always a question of, what is the perceived value of this answer? And therefore,
Mm-hmm.
how much protective do we need to be about this data? So I think we are already
Right.
at that stage where the perceived value of this exercise where we marry the data with the data of our clients, it starts
Mm-hmm.
generating such a high value answer that people are okay to do this exercise, because otherwise there is no option. everything is finally determined by economics. Data protection becomes a question if the perceived value is limited. But if the perceived value is going to be 20% of the gross revenues of your company, nobody is going to ask that question. And I think we've already started showing that value to our clients, where we are, primarily deciding the growth path of our companies. To give you an example, one of our early clients whom we have been working with over the last 2 years, they are also our strategic investors. We have already created an impact of 200 crores within a year, direct impact. Now, when you have that much money sitting on the table, the data protection, data quality becomes something where, you have to bypass that if you have to achieve that growth. Yes, there are frameworks, but the resistance to certain things becomes much lower. And anyway, one thing which we have been very clear about, that there will be no personal information that will go from me to you or from you to me. So that is definitely taken care
Right.
of. So within that
Great.
existing framework, we are now pushing for the value, and therefore these answers
Mm-hmm.
are becoming easier to solve.
Mm-hmm. Right. I think, yeah, that's very important because when we're talking about a lot of data and making use of that data, data protection and security is, of course, quintessential in these aspects. But one last question for you, Devashish, if you can just wrap it up in short, would be like, what are your views on the future of retail and also the integration of technology and retail in the coming years?
I think when I touched upon that whole chain for retail, from production down to serving your end customer in a life
Mm-hmm.
cycle of 3, 4, 5 years, because that's how the stores are designed to be. There are
Right.
multiple segments, warehousing, production. I won't touch upon that because there is a lot of work happening in that. There are robots in warehouses now, so everything is moving fast.
Right. Right.
But when we come from deciding location to deciding where the marketing is going to be, then
Mm-hmm.
deciding, counting the number of people, this understanding who are these customers who are walking inside the store. We don't want a complete Digi Yatra face recognition kind of a
Mm-hmm.
system. But what we want to know is, can I identify a person walking into the store as a repeat customer? Because maybe it's an anonymized number, but I need to be able to understand who is this customer. Has this person walked into my store previously? And there are systems coming towards that. Even the experience of retail is changing. You see, technologies being incorporated into kind of giving you a very enriching experience within the store. You go to an Apple store, the way things are laid out, the way why something sits on the front table compared to back table. This is all being driven by technology. How are people, moving around within the store is also being incorporated into each and every store, so that we are getting smarter. And then the final thing is, how do I invest my marketing money? Because you know in the e-commerce world, you spend money on Facebook and Google, but when you're coming to physical locations, marketing is one of the continuous spends that you have to do. Now, where, how, to whom, if you are getting faster and faster signals, you can incorporate those signals to get better and better and better and better fine-tuned answers. But I would say we are still away from super personalization down to an individual level, because that would defeat the purpose of retail. So there are interesting things
Right.
happening. How do I understand anybody who has seen my product online now coming to my offline store to experience it? All these tracking of information has allowed carefully designed new algorithms coming into the world
Mhm.
of retail, um, down to an
Yeah.
individual retailer as well. I mean, these tools are now
Yeah.
becoming accessible and continuously will become accessible to each and every retailer around the country to drive these really, really fast experiences, personalized experiences, ideal experiences. Speed has been
Mhm.
the key issue in retail. That is transforming
True.
drastically now.
Yeah. Yeah. I agree. I think in order to provide like a seamless customer experience, it's basically defined by reducing friction, ease, providing excellent service, and also like a high level of personalization throughout the buying process, throughout the buying journey. Now, to satisfy these considerations, I guess retailers must create actionable insights from the data they have about the operations or the consumer habits for that matter. But when location analytics is integrated with the massive amounts of operational data we have, I think retailers are poised to gain unimaginable efficiency or growth, also like a competitive edge, and achieve like a higher levels of customer experience and satisfaction. Well, thank you so much, Devashish. It was pleasure having you with us. I think we get a lot of insights as to what location intelligence is and how it can basically help retailers grow their revenue and have like a scalable business for over the years. So thank you so much for your insight. It was a pleasure having you with us.
Thanks, Priya. Thanks for the opportunity to speak to us. And I hope there was something additional that you learned today about the world of retail.
Definitely, yeah, definitely. I think I of course knew about location data, but I never knew that a lot of things that go into location intelligence and how your company GeoIQ is actually making insights or helping retailers grow their business with a lot of location data and the mobility solutions that you explained. So yes, definitely it was quite an insightful learning for us.
Thanks a lot, Priya. It's been
Thank
a
you.
very, very good interaction. Thank you.
Yeah, yes. Stay tuned for our next podcast, listeners, and you can listen to all our previous podcasts on Spotify and Apple Music as well. Till then, we'll be back soon with another podcast soon.